If you're shopping for a new truck, SUV, or family vehicle in 2026, some of the most popular engines on the road are also in the center of a major recall, federal investigations, and catastrophic engine failures. I'm going to break this down, share the models you're going to find those engines in, break down the issues, and why you need to avoid these engines and vehicles today. Let's get into it now. The first one I want to talk about is one that actually burns me to the core because they've historically been so reliable. It's the Honda 1.5-liter L15 engine. It's a turbocharged inline-4, has aluminum block and head, direct fuel injection, 174 to about 205 horsepower, and basically up to 192 pound-feet of torque. All sounds very intriguing, doesn't it? I thought so too. As a matter of fact, you'll find these in the Civic, the CR-V, as well as the Acura Integra base model. That's why in the Integra, I suggest always go up to the 2-liter. But the biggest concerns we've seen involve fuel dilution, injector failures, head gasket failures. The fuel dilution became a major issue in earlier generations when gasoline contaminated the engine oil. Now, of course, lubrication isn't as effective because there's oil, which is essentially a solvent. Especially in the cold climates, Honda issued a software updates and service actions, and the problem appears significantly improved in newer production vehicles. That being said, head gasket failures, injector issues continue to be reported by owners, making this one of the engines many of us still monitor very, very closely, probably to the point where I still don't truly trust it. A lot of people say they've loved their engines in the 1.5s, but I can't say it definitely resonates with me. The good news is there's currently no large-scale NHTSA engine failure investigation on the model L15 engines comparable to what's happening with Honda's V6 or even General Motors V8 engines. But that moves us into Honda's bigger engine, the big brother, the naturally aspirated V6, 3.5-liter displacement called the J35. Yes, the J35 has been around for quite some time, but it does give you an all-aluminum block, direct fuel injection, ranges from 280 to 310 horsepower, and you can get a significant amount of torque, 267 pounds of twist. You'll find these in vehicles like the Honda Pilot, the Odyssey, the Ridgeline, even the Honda Passport, the Acura MDX, and the Acura TLX as well. This engine became the subject of a recall after improperly machined crankshaft journals were linked to connecting rod bearing failures, engine seizure, and stalling. Honda originally recalled about 250,000 vehicles. The story didn't stop there. Federal regulators later expanded their focus to approximately 1.4 million Honda and Acura vehicles after hundreds of owners' complaints and thousands of warranty claims involving the connecting rod bearing failures. That seems to be a common theme, and you'll find a lot of these commonalities in a lot of these engines that we're talking today. But this was happening outside the original recall population even. More than 400 failure reports have been documented. For many of us, this remains one of the most important ongoing engine investigations in the entire automotive industry. Quite a disappointment considering the engines that are good are great, they're amazing, but it's literally a crapshoot and a roll of the dice. The next one is the Toyota 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6 called the V35A FTS. Yes, it's a 3.4-liter V6, all-aluminum block, dual fuel injection, which in this case is not the problem because it also produces 349 to about 409 horsepower and produces 479 to about 650 pound-feet of torque depending on the application. Find them in the Toyota Tundra, the Sequoia, even the Lexus LX600, and the newly found and produced GX550, and I hate to say this, the LS500, which is their beautiful sedan. This is one of the biggest quality issues Toyota has faced in decades. Toyota determined that manufacturing debris inside certain engines could damage the crankshaft main bearings. Eventually, this would cause knocking, bearing failure, engine seizure, and complete engine destruction. Toyota's remedy was quite extraordinary. Replace the entire engine on a massive scale rather than performing component repairs. It was effectively swapping out an entire long block. That's everything from the top to the bottom, just do a full-scale replacement. Affected vehicles have been covered by multiple recalls. And subsequent expansions, Toyota even eventually expanded the affected population well beyond the original recall group. Teardown analysis of failed engines have revealed something interesting. Severe bearing failure and damage, significant metal contaminants throughout the entire lubrication system. The encouraging news is that newer production engines appear to have benefited from manufacturing process improvements and enhancements. but it's not always out of the woods. I'm still hearing stories of engines with relatively low miles failing. But the next one's an absolutely huge one. General Motors and their 6.2-liter V8 called the L87. It's a naturally aspirated 6.2 V8, features direct fuel injection, dynamic fuel management, 420 horsepower, and wow, 460 pound-feet of twist. Of course, you can find that engine wrapped up under the hood of many Chevy Silverado 1500s, the GMC Sierra 1500s, Chevy Tahoes, Suburbans, of course, GMC Yukons, and even the Cadillac Escalade. This is arguably the biggest active engine investigation in North America today. Absolutely devastating, really. Federal regulators opened an investigation covering roughly 878,000 vehicles after reports of bearing failures, connecting rod failures, engine seizing up, and a complete loss of propulsion. In other words, it just died and it stopped right in its place. GM later issued recalls affecting nearly 600,000 vehicles, and according to public reporting, General Motors documented over 28,000 field complaints. Along with reports of crashes and fires, potentially leaked to the defect, this is really highly devastating for GM. Even more concerning that I found when I came across this was how regulators are now examining reports of engines failing after the recall repairs were completed. For truck buyers, this remains one of the most closely watched reliability stories of the industry. There's more to this story too, where now they're going with a different grade of oil. They're doing a deviation analysis test. The next one in line is Nissan. They've been struggling bad enough as it is, but the 1.5-liter variable compression turbo engine called the KR15 DDT. It is in fact a 1.5-liter turbocharged, that's right, 3-cylinder with variable compression engine. Why? Just leave a connecting rod as they were. Direct in fuel injection, 200 horse, 225 pound-feet of torque, and you'll generally find these in Nissan Rogue. Now, this engine has been linked to bearing failures that can lead to oil leaks, engine damage, loss of propulsion. In other words, they croak right on the side of the road. And in some situations, increased fire risk. That's devastating because the engine's variable compression technology is completely complex. Many buyers have questioned long-term durability compared with more conventional designs. What's wrong with using a standard connecting rod? No, they use a series of joints and links, and you're just adding a whole lot more dimension to the problem. Way more complexity than they possibly need. But let's be honest, many other manufacturers have troubled engines as well. You can find them in General Motors' 5.3-liter V8 with the cylinder management issues and, of course, the cracked lifters. You can also find Hyundai or Kia and the Smart Stream engines, as well as the Theta engines, due to the bearing wear, oil consumption, piston rings breaking, and even engine failures outright. As we look across today's market, we can see a very different root cause behind these failures. Manufacturing defects, bearing issues, contamination problems, and honestly, in some cases, it's a design issue. Quality control can be a bit of a problem. Keep your head above water. Keep listening to these recalls because these stories are not ending here. And if you want to get my detailed list of some of the reasons why these are happening and what's going on in today's industry and why, hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.